it's time now for our guest speaker. And I have been thinking about this ever since I found out that she had accepted. And I've been thinking, how in the world do you introduce Lois Wilson? And I was talking to my Al-Anon friends today, and I said, I'm really scared, because I really don't know how. And I said, there are no words to describe this beautiful person. There are no words to introduce her. And they said, you have just done it. I know you feel the same as I. That if it had not been for Bill and Lois, God only knows where we'd all be today. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to a very beautiful woman, Lois.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lois and Allison. I feel as if I were both AA and Al-Anon. But I can't tell you how very grateful and happy I am to be here with you all. Your enthusiasm and devotion and love is something that I shall long remember. In fact, I don't think I ever heard the greetings after a person gives their name. Hi, I'm Lois Wilson. I'm very excited and thrilled, as you folks seem to be always, and enthusiastic. And it's something that I will take with me when I go home and live with for a long time, I hope. When I said I was AA, didn't know I was AA or Al-Anon, it was because in the early days of AA, the families went to all the meetings just with their husbands. And it was the microphone. Oh, I was always going dead. I guess I just stepped aside. Excuse me. But the whole family, the mothers and the children, and the whole family went with the alcoholics, who usually at that time, in the early days, the male member of the family. There weren't too many women around that time in AA. So we considered ourselves part of AA. And of course I've been so close to it all along that I really feel as if I belonged in AA. But I know I belong to Al-Anon. And I want to thank you all so very much for your kindness and your devotion to me, for the lovely flowers in the room and my beautiful orchid. It's the kind I've never seen before. I think it's exquisite. And for all your love. The love can be felt wherever I go, I can feel it. And I hope you can all feel mine in return. I thought maybe you'd like to hear a little bit about how I knew that I needed to live by the same program that Bill did. It took me quite a while, because in the early days, AA had started in the Oxford group. They didn't consider themselves separate. They thought they were part of the Oxford group. But I went along with Bill, not because I needed the spiritual inspiration of the group, because I felt that I knew all the answers. But I didn't need the Oxford group. But a loving and beautiful wife went along with her husband, so I went along with him for his sake, not for mine. And it was quite some time before I recognized the fact that I had a few little difficulties of my own. And it was one day when Bill said, "Oh, I think you'll be late for the meeting unless we hurry." And I had a shoe in my hand. And I took that shoe and I threw it just as hard as I could and said, "Damn your old meeting." I think Bill was more surprised. At least I think I was more surprised than Bill was. Why had I lost my temper at such a very simple remark of his? Okay, wait a minute. Innocuous remark. Can you hear that now? You said no, did you? Okay. I didn't feel as if I could be heard somehow, although I guess because there was no echo. So I began to think about myself. It took me a long time. I just wondered why I had reacted so violently. Could there be something wrong with me? Well, it's taken me, how many years now is this, do you think? 40 years, and I'm still finding things the matter with me. So, the taking of an inventory is something that has to go on through your whole lifetime. But I discovered that, and this took me a long time, and with a lot of help of other people, friends in the Oxford group, it took me quite a while to see that I was jealous of Bill. I mean, jealous of his newfound friends. I think I'd better go back, though, and leave the story right there and tell you about our early life together a little bit, so you'll understand a little bit more of the background. When Bill and I were first engaged, I was very, very proud of him because he used to go to the bars, the saloons as they were called in those days, and take ginger ale or sarsaparilla or some sort of drink, while his buddies took beer. And I thought he was so strong-willed. And I was very surprised after we got married to find that he had started to drink. You see, as a young man, before we were married, his family had told him that his father had drank too much and gotten into a lot of trouble. His mother divorced his father for that reason. His grandfather had had drinking problems and had gotten into trouble, but he had had a spiritual awakening, his grandfather had, and stopped drinking. He joined some religion, I don't know just what it was. So he had been warned that he probably would be, they didn't use the word alcoholic in those days, it was just a drunk. He would probably be a drunk too if he didn't watch out. So Bill believed them, and he didn't touch anything until he joined the army. This was way back in the First World War, and he was a young officer on the post in New Bedford, Massachusetts, when we were married. And as I say, I was surprised to find that he was drinking. But I used to kid him and tell him that he could resist the boys when they offered him a drink in the bars and saloons, but not the girls at cocktail parties. So he started, and of course he was alcoholic from the very start, but we didn't either of us know enough to know it. But I was very embarrassed when the boys came to me and said that they had to take Bill home and put him to bed, and they put a bucket by his head. But it wasn't too bad at that time, because he only drank occasionally at a party. And I was so sure of myself that I felt very confident that life with me would be so stimulating. That Bill wouldn't need any artificial stimulant. But as time went on and the years rolled by, and Bill's drinking got worse and worse, and my wonderful effect on Bill proved more and more negative. Also, we had no children. My one aim in life was to try and help Bill sober up. And he very willingly seemed to want my help. At first, of course, he thought he could stop whenever he felt like it. But then he did find out that he couldn't stop when he wanted to stop. And Bill got to wanting to stop more and more and deeper, and his ability less and less. And he kept asking for my help when we were trying to work it out together. As I say, I had no children, so he became my baby. I was nurse, mother, breadwinner, the whole deal. Because Bill got so he could not make any family decisions or do anything. He just stayed home and drank. He was afraid to go out in the street, afraid the cops would get him. So that was the situation when Ebby Thatcher, as you probably all read about in the big book, came and told Bill that he had stopped drinking. And Bill, as you know, was very impressed because Eddie had never come to New York unless it was for a drink. And here he was, clear-eyed and sober and clear thinking. And he told Bill about this wonderful program that he had found where he was released from alcohol, from the desire to drink. He wasn't on the wagon. His problem had been taken from him. Bill couldn't get this out of his mind, but he kept on drinking for quite a while until he went to the hospital so he could think more clearly about this wonderful thing that had happened to his friend. Because, as I said before, Bill wanted with all his soul to stop drinking. And so he was only too grateful to find that a friend of his had been able to do it. So we wanted to understand more about this. So we went to the hospital to get sober up. And he had that wonderful spiritual awakening that you've all read about. And when I went to see him, I knew from the very first moment I laid eyes on him that he was a different man, that he never would drink any more. And I never had any doubt for the next 40 years. And Bill was, of course, an entirely different man. He had the same wonderful characteristics that he had in the beginning, but they were now enhanced and put to use for which he was only too happy to use. So that has been the background for just before I threw my shoe. And as I said, I began to think a little bit about myself and my relation to Bill, to my fellow man, and to God. I'd just taken myself for granted before that. I'd had a good education. I'd had a wonderful family life. My parents were loving and kind. I had everything that anybody could have. And it never occurred to me that I could be doing anything wrong because I wanted to do the right. That seemed to be my main alibi, is that I wanted very badly to do what was right and to help Bill. And I thought that was sufficient. But I made many, many, many blunders. And I saw that Bill didn't need me anymore. Before this, all during his years of drinking, I'd organized outdoor weekends. Bill did the reverse of most alcoholics. He didn't drink over the weekends. It was because we would go out and do something that would be interesting in the outdoors. He came from a small country town, and I had met him up in the country, and I loved the country, and we just loved the outdoors. And so we'd planned something for the weekend, and he seemed to enjoy these weekends just as much as I did. Of course, my main purpose was to get him away from alcohol. But he seemed to enjoy doing these things. We do all kinds of crazy things. If we didn't have any money, we'd take the subway as far as it would go, and then walk back. Start walking back. Sometimes we'd take a train and get off any place and start walking. Or the Palisades across from New York are a beautiful place to walk. And we go across the ferry. And we take our pack on our backs and we might sleep out. And we would hire a rowboat on the Hudson and put a bath towel on our oar and sail up the Hudson. And I remember one night we landed on a spit of land that came out near Nyack, New Jersey. And the mosquitoes were simply terrible. So we took our blanket roll, put it on the floor of the rowboat, and rowed out into the channel where there was a wind, a breeze to blow the mosquitoes off. But that channel on the Hudson River is quite a dangerous place because there are any number of great big vessels coming and going. But we did get through safely anyway. But we were always doing these crazy kind of things. And later, I guess, maybe some of you have heard about the motorcycle trip that we took. Of course, my idea again was to get Bill away from the city and from his buddies that I thought were his downfall. But he had an idea in the back of his head about the stock market. He hadn't only just dabbled a little bit in it, but he became very much interested in it. And he figured out that when his grandfather wanted to buy a cow, he always went out and felt the cow's legs and found out how much milk it gave and how old the cow was and all about the cow. But people bought stocks without knowing anything about them. So he thought that it would be good to go out and find out something about the stock that he was interested in. So we set off. Everybody thought we were perfectly crazy. For a year's trip. We didn't know just where we were going, but we were going to investigate some of the companies that Bill was interested in. Of course, the GE, General Electric here, was one of the first ones. And we didn't do too much investigating in that one, but we did find some very valuable information about radio, which hadn't. This, of course, was way back in 1925, when radio was just beginning. But we had a wonderful year on that motorcycle. And Bill did send back reports. Nobody took any stock in his ideas at first. He tried to sell this idea before we went, but nobody thought was any good. But when he went out and investigated and sent back reports, then that was something else. So that started him in his career in Wall Street. And it was one of the really grandest times that we did have together. But we were always very, very companionable. And we could continue these weekends and trips together until he sobered up. And then we didn't have them anymore. And Bill was always running here and there and going away out of town, going down to the slums, getting his old buddies, bringing everybody home. And when he first sobered up, of course, he wanted to sober all the drunks in the world. Bill never did anything by half. So I think he must have brought at least a quarter of them home to Clinton Street. Because we had drunks living on every floor of our house. We were living in my father's house. The mortgage company had got it, and they let us live there for $20 a month. It was a 5-story city house, and we had lots of room for drunks. So I found that I was really jealous of his newfound friends. That Bill didn't need me anymore. But before, while he was drinking, I had been very important. I had been very much needed. And also my mother instinct had been fulfilled, which after Bill sobered up didn't seem to be needed any longer. And I didn't know just where I stood. And I think for many of us in Al-Anon, the first 2 or 3 years of our spouse's sobriety may be even harder than the drinking years, because it's a terrific adjustment. Before, while the husband was drinking, the spouse had to make all decisions. He or she was the pivot of the family. And after he sobers up, he or she sobers up, the relationship is back to what is a normal relationship, partnership. But it hadn't been a partnership during the drinking. And this is very hard to find out about and to work at and to realize. And Bill and I were so disappointed at first, because here the alcoholics had this wonderful program, and they were sobering up, one here and then one there. It took a tremendous number of people to sober up one man, however. But they were sobering up, and it was a wonderful program to live by. And yet the family life didn't seem to be happy. Why was this? What was the trouble? And by degrees, and it's taken a long, long time, as I said before, we realized that the spouse has to go along too to make a happy partnership. She needs it. She's just as distorted And I was thinking, Bill, of course, had started AA by this time, and it was going in great shape. And in 1948, I think it was, he came out here and came out all through the country. He wanted to see what the groups felt about a conference of delegates who would supervise the GSO, the General Service Office, so that AA would be in the group's hands, in the individual's hands, so that there'd be no authority, any one place, that AA belonged to everyone. So, as I say, he had this idea of starting an annual conference. So we came out and went all around to the United States and Canada. And to his surprise, he found quite a number of family groups. And he came back and told me about them and asked me if I wouldn't start a service office, a central service office for these families, because they seem to need unifying. Some of them seem to be just what you call coffee and cake groups. They just served the refreshments or hung up the curtains in a clubhouse or something of that sort. But a lot of them were seriously working to try and help themselves to live a better, more useful life. So, to be perfectly honest with you, I wasn't too crazy to do it. I had lived with all these drugs around the house. We had just recently moved to Bedford Hills, and I wanted to dig in the dirt. I wanted to get my hands out of the soil and grow things. I wanted to fix up my house. I didn't want to start an organization. But I didn't take me too long to see what a very much needed thing this was. You see, Annie Smith, Dr. Bob's wife, and I, we were the early two wives. Annie had found out the way I had, that I needed to live by the 12 steps of AA just as much as Bill did. And so whenever we went to another group, and there was much traveling around in those days, even more than there is now when we have such easy communication, because there wasn't any literature in the early days. You had to go, you had to be there. People had to talk face to face. And so while Bill would be talking with the alcoholics, I would be telling their families how I had found that I needed to live by the 12 steps of AA. And Annie Smith, although they weren't able to travel as much as we were, Bob was 15 years older than Bill, and they were neither of them as well as we were. And then Bob had a practice as well as working with the alcoholics, so that they weren't as available to move as we were, move around the country. So these groups of families that Bill founded, 48 groups of the families of alcoholics, were started really in two ways. In this way of a few of them maybe hearing somebody else, or me, Annie or me, tell about how we've had to, but also spontaneously, just the way I had felt that, and Bill had, and Smith had felt it. They had felt the need to join together and to try and do something about their own problems. So, when I woke up to the fact that this was going to be a very inspiring and useful thing to do, we called up GSO, General Service Office, AA, to find out if they had any names of any families, any wives or husbands that wanted to form a group. And to our surprise, there were 87 names that AA had listed of people who had written into the office for help on the family side. And AA wasn't set up to help the families, and so they just filed them. They wrote them, of course, pleasant letters. But I mean, they weren't equipped. They couldn't do it. So we took those. I got another Annie, and Annie Bingham this time, to help me. And we started writing to these 87 names. And we got back 50. So Al-Anon really started with 50 groups. That was really a great surprise to get such a large number of groups. This was back in 1951, the early part of 51 that we started. And then we wrote these 50 groups, and we asked them if they would like to live by the 12 steps of AA, if they thought that they were the best principles that could be found anywhere to live by. And they answered yes, they did. And we asked them about a name. Would the Al-Anon family group be a good title? Yes, it would. Then by degrees we asked them about the traditions. I mean, later on we asked them about the traditions, and then still later about the service structure, the third legacy. So we in Al-Anon have really followed in AA's footsteps. There's really nothing original about Al-Anon. Bill helped me a tremendous amount in getting all the early things, getting the steps and the traditions. Because the steps were already written, and we only changed one word in the steps. And that is in the last step we changed, take this message to alcoholics, and we say to others. That's the only difference there is in those 12 steps. And the traditions are almost the same in spirit at any rate. And Al-Anon has really grown at a tremendous rate, even faster than AA, because it had AA to show the way, to show us how to do it. And we just copied it. We just did just as AA did. And then also, for every one joint, there are at least 5 people affected. So the audience are, I don't know what you want to call it, but prospective customers or prospective members is so much greater for Al-Anon than it is for AA. Because there are wives, husbands, children, parents, sisters, brothers, employees, all kinds of people that have been affected by living with an alcoholic. So, Al-Anon has grown in a tremendous, terrifically inspiring way. And I'm just so thrilled about seeing you all here and feeling your devotion and knowing that you're all so enthusiastic and so willing and anxious to carry the message. And I know that AA and Al-Anon will go along hand in hand for as long as God permits it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lois. We had a meeting this morning at 8:30, and one of the ladies that spoke said that your dreams come true. And I always had this dream that I would be able to at least see Lois someday. But never did I think I'd be at a meeting with her. And the dreams do come true. I don't know how all of you feel, but my cup runneth over today. I want to thank all of you again for being here and for all the help I have received. And we will read the closing now and have our prayer. And I'd like to remind all of you that we are going to have 2 more Al-Anon meetings today. One is at 4:15 and one will be at 10:30 this evening. And at this meeting tonight we will have a couple of skits for you, so I hope to see you there. Margie P. will read the closing.
Hi, I'm Margie, a very grateful Al-Anon. In closing, I would like to say that the opinions expressed here were strictly those of the person who gave them. Take what you like and leave the rest. The things you heard were spoken in confidence and should be treated as confidential. Keep them within the walls of this room and the confines of your mind. A few special words to those of you who haven't been with us long. Whatever your problems, there are those among us who have had them too. If you try to keep an open mind, you will find help. You will come to realize that there is no situation too difficult to be bettered and no unhappiness too great to be lessened. We aren't perfect. The welcome we give you may not show the warmth we have in our hearts for you. After a while, you'll discover that though you may not like all of us, you'll love us in a very special way, the same way we already love you. Talk to each other, reason things out with someone else, but let there be no gossip or criticism of one another. Instead, let the understanding, love, and peace of the program grow in you one day at a time. Will all who care to join me in the closing prayer? Our Father,